Good afternoon, friends, to wherever you are based across the country or across the globe. And in this coming 2 hours, what we are going to do is we will be addressing on certain areas. In fact, throughout the journey of this lecture series, as far as HR or human resource management is concerned, we have been addressing various aspects right from the areas, right from how HRP came into existence, the concept of HRM, and we got into certain different functions as well, like right from job analysis, job description, recruitment, selection, various pros about it. The associate add-on functions of HR includes training as well. So these are the kind of areas that we have dealt with till now. Today, what we are going to do is we will a major chunk of time we would be discussing on certain interesting case studies, and which are students of human resource, or if you are working for a human resource function, it becomes very critical. Now, understand, friends, one thing, that it's important that you need to find critical distinctions in life. The faster you do it, it becomes better to you, so that it becomes a very kind of the decision making process becomes very smooth. And when we say critical distinctions, it's also about gathering resource, gathering data, and that you're relevant of that from the context of that given situation. But before we take up 5 cases is what case studies is what we'll be taking up for the coming 2 hours. But before we can delve into these cases, we will take one of the areas that is also associated with all of the HR functions, and which a majority of companies and organizations these days are facing a big challenge. And that's about attrition, as the slide suggests. Now, attrition is an interesting subject for all, not only for students but for organization, because it brings in cost factor, it brings in talent, it brings in various elements as well. In fact, I should say goes out rather than bringing in. But the concept of bringing the attrition to understand the subject better is highly important. So let's understand this one by one. So we will understand attrition through various research methodology. We will understand the concept from what are the research being done in this given context through observation methods. The topics of discussion would be attrition and its causes. Now, the objective of study of attrition is what are the current findings in the current context. 2, we will also look into certain recommendations that is given from these findings, and also solutions, possible solutions as well. And then also, students, we will interpret this data and take it and correlate to our case studies as well, because they are all interlinked. Understand that in organization, it's not only a cause and effect. It's not linear. Cause and effect is there, but it's not linear. When I say linear, for one single cause or one single effect, there are multiple causes, and from every cause is also an effect of some, is a precursor to it. So when we say cause and effect are systemic, they are not linear. So when we look at solutions of attrition, we'll be looking at from different dimension how it matters as well. So although we would be addressing or discussing bit by bit or case by case, but yet as students we need to identify that they are not singular functions. To understand that, might be we'll pick up singular, but we need to understand they are all interlinked and correlated to each other, and that's a very important thing to understand. Okay, so let's start with definition itself. So when we say definition of attrition, what does attrition mean? So attrition is the reduction in the number of employees through resignation, or death. I reiterate or repeat, it is the reduction in the number of employees working for an organization through resignation or death. These are the only two possible causes through which the employer might leave the organization. Now, if you are discussing the rate, now one is defining what is attrition, but also we need to understand what is the rate of attrition as well. Now, rate is one of also the benchmarking tools to understand employee satisfaction, to also understand new blood or new thought that has come in as far as the overall gamut of people structure is concerned. So when we say defining attrition rate, now attrition rate is the rate of shrinkage in size or number. So for organization, when HR functions correlate data or collate data across the year for understanding their functions of people development, about recruitment as well, selection as well. One of the things that is also addressed is attrition, because based on the attrition, there are other effects and causes also connected to it as well. Okay, so let's discuss about attrition as well. Now, when we say employee attrition has been quite common in the present day organizational structure. Now, before we actually take off, let's understand, or I would like to put across a question to you. Number one, is attrition important for any organization? Now, think about it. It makes valuable substance of what I'm speaking of. Because when I say, people normally say that attrition is very high, or people leaving the organization is high or low. Now, before we delve into that, we need to understand, is attrition required for any organization? Okay, the answer is, whatever you might have thought of, the answer is an emphatic yes. For a simple reason that if there is no attrition at all, new people or new thoughts will never come in. Now, when we say attrition, it's not only about people retiring. Now, that might have happened once in every 30 or 40 years for an employee. So in that case, attrition is very less. So we might have years together, there is no people leaving. But not only because of retirement, but also forced attrition. When we will get into this aspect of where an organization decides that it's better that the employer and the employee relationship part off for mutual good. And we'll get into this area as well. So to start off, we need to understand that attrition is important for every organization. Now, at what level, at what ratio is what we'll get into. Now, employee turnover, or what we most commonly call as attrition, can be attributed to several reasons, and there are a huge list of it. It depends upon various factors, few which we have tried to correlate. One, the organizational climate, that means what kind of climate the organization has, as well as the employee perceptions about the workplace. So it's not only about the organizational structure, climate, culture, that is one area. The second area is also about the employee per se. That means it also depends upon how he perceives the job as well. What are the reasons, or what does the job means to you? What are the reasons that he wants to take up the job? What is the intention of doing a job apart from money? Also means like, what does career mean to him? What does responsibility mean to him or her? So these are the various things that influence attrition. There are two types of attrition. One is a functional turnover, and the second is a dysfunctional turnover. Now, when we say functional turnover, now a turnover in which the poor performer of an organization leaves, it is called a functional turnover. That means here the basis of the person moving out of the organization is lack of performance or gaps in performance as per as what is expected and what is delivered. The functional turnover can be beneficial for the organization because if poor performance leave the organization, it will lead to organizational effectiveness. So it's better that the person moves out of the system if he is underperforming or if he is under optimized in performance. Now reasons could be many, and it has been seen that over a period of time, if underperformance is discounted, then it's neither beneficial for the organization nor for the employee as well. So it's a kind of mutual win-win for both situations, especially if underperformance remains for a longer period of time. And through effective, even when initial measures of mentoring, coaching, training, skill development, even after this has been done, then a point needs to come when the parting off takes place. And it's healthier for the organization to be that way, also healthy for the employee as well. Because what happens is, if a person keeps on continuing to do the job with an underperformance, two, three things happen with him as well. One, there is a stress as far as the pressure is concerned. Two, the overall way the people look at him changes, and so does his comfort level as far as the workplace is concerned. So all this adds up to the situation, and neither is helpful, because ultimately if it prevails for a longer period of time, it might result into underconfidence, low self-esteem, and so on and so forth. These employees cannot make significant contribution towards organizational development. If it's in a small phase, initial period, then could be accounted to, requisite steps could be taken as well. But if it's for a longer period of time, it doesn't make sense. Now when we say dysfunctional turnover, now what does dysfunctional turnover mean? Now dysfunctional turnover means the turnover in which the good performer of the organization leaves. It's called a dysfunctional turnover. Now dysfunctional turnover is what the organization is really concerned of. So when we say that that attrition needs to be low, it actually means that the dysfunctional attrition needs to be low, because functional attrition is part of a good health of the organization. So when we say dysfunctional, when we say good performer, means an employee who is working in an organization, delivering results, and then leaves. And so this is something that the organization, the HR, should be concerned of. Now causes, let's look into the causes, and there are multiple causes as far as people leaving the organization are concerned. Now people leaving the organization, what the factors are collated, are looked into from both angles, functional, dysfunctional, but the factors are important from both the parameters as well. Now if you are working in an HR personnel, or if you're even as a student or intends to work for an HR department, you really need to be knowing about the facts which comes from lots of research and findings. And the causes of attrition or people leaving the organization are, and the order is not in terms of priority of 1 to the number, it's a random order. One of the causes was lack of good compensation package. Now if an organization is not paying its employees as per industry standards, then there is quite a chance that people might leave the organization as well. Second, it could be lack of motivation to do the work. Now, motivation could be financial or non-financial. It could be designation. It could be various other motivation. It could be learning. It could be mentoring. It could be coaching as well. It could be also lack of team cohesiveness, especially when you are working in an organizational context. Then it needs to be seen that we work in team as well. Not only we work in silos or individual, but we work in teams as well. So when we are working in teams, the team gelling around is important, because if teams are not going to gel around, then it's a difficult proposition. Lack of employee recognition. Suppose if an employee, this is a real good one, because a lot of good performers, if their work is not appreciated, honored, or respected, is also a reason that people leave the job as well. It could be also lack of employee empowerment. Now, when we say employee empowerment, it's about growing, learning within the organizational structure. It also means taking up new responsibilities, not only in terms of designation, but maybe in terms of types of work, in terms of people management, in terms of learning new softwares, could be, or whatever that means to the individual. It also could be due to lack of support from senior management. Now, when we say lack of senior management, it means that not only recognition, but also support in terms of resources, in terms of infrastructure, in terms of information are relevant from these aspects. It could be also lack of job enrichment. When we say job enrichment, it means the kind and quality of job the person needs to do, that needs to be fulfilling, that needs to be nurturing, nourishing, growing, evolving, expanding as well. So that's important. So these are the few causes that normally people encounter as the cause of attrition are concerned. The findings, career development, the recommendations and suggestions to check dysfunctional attrition or to reduce dysfunctional attrition are: number one, mentoring and counseling; 2, compensation; 3, career development; 4, management support; and skill retention strategy as well. So when we look into one of these one by one. So when we say of mentoring and counseling, it's about sharing the experience to the subordinates. When you say that if a person wants to grow, a good mentor or a guide or a coach really shows him the path in terms of maybe not only his career development, but also in terms of handling people. It could be about learning. It could be about learning a new skill. It could be about better application of that knowledge that the person has or system has. So if these experiences are shared with subordinates, it also really helps to check attrition. It is guiding them to achieve their goals. Let me tell you, friends, there's a great difference between managers and leaders. As far as managers are concerned, manager is just a title, but leadership doesn't require a title. Leadership is something more than that title. A leadership could be any individual. It could be right from a liftman to a CEO. It doesn't absolutely require a title. And leadership has to be lived, and that's the most important aspect of leadership. So when we speak of leadership, leaders do this a lot. That means they help identify people's goals. They say that don't give a fish to an individual. He can only eat for one day. They say that it's better that you teach him fishing. If you teach him fishing, he can fish for himself and eat lifelong. So this was a metaphor to demonstrate the fact that When you help people to identify their goals, not only from a professional aspect, professional for sure, in terms of career planning and roadmap and blueprint about it, but also in terms of pathway to lead better lives. That's also one of the leadership attributes. And that's the reason that a lot of times people say that people more often than not don't change companies, they just change bosses. And that's a very powerful statement. I would like to repeat that. They say that employees don't change companies, they just change bosses. Now, that's a huge influence, and a lot of people in this research have also demonstrated this fact as well, where people more often than not would not like to change good bosses as well. The corresponding analogy or corollary is, even if the compensation is not at par, even if situations are not great, still people don't want to miss out on good leadership. If they are under good leaders, they would want to continue to do the same, even if other conditions might not be favorable. That's something to ponder over and chew over. Compensation. So, having said that, yes, compensation is important. It needs to be as per industry standards. One, compensation plays a major role in retaining the workforce. If the employees are not paid well, they will, at some point of time, leave the organization for simple reason that money is an important resource. And when we say resource, a lot of things are connected as well, not only from a needs perspective, but also in terms of convenience. Money also, the resources helps us to grow, expand, even the liberty to freedom to think as well sometimes. So yes, compensation need to be compensated not only as per industry standards, but also in terms of how the person grows, contributes as well to the organization. It's also about being fair as well. When we say fair, it means that having no prejudice against somebody. It should be based fairly on performance with clear-cut black and white benchmarks. It also, as far as recommendations are concerned, based on career growth and development. That means growth and development are integral part of individual career. They say that for humans, growth is given. That means that's an instinct that an individual has always by default, if as humans. So if it's an innate and inborn kind of track, it's important that we ignite and keep the flame of growth burning alive as well. So if employees feel there is no scope for their career development, also this is one of the reasons that it leads to attrition. Providing appropriate training and development opportunities is also essential. That means that at requisite time, skill development, the three areas of development should be groomed, nurtured, and developed. And those are areas of knowledge, skill, and also attitude. Now, attitude is composed of various sub-elements. It's not a single word. It has many things. Knowledge is the absolute knowledge of the functional job. Skill, it's about doing. It's about doing from your knowing. And attitude is how you approach it. Now, attitude has various sub-elements, right, from openness, optimism, to being realistic, to being real, to being honest, to being resilient, to be a good decision maker, to be a mix of hard and smart work, to be flexible as well. So mix of all. When we say of management support, it's about support that can be provided to the employees in various ways. Now this can be in the form of counseling and mentoring, providing timely feedback. Now, this is one area, especially in Indian organization, uh, or Asian organization to call it, giving feedback has is coming up very thick and fast. When you say giving feedback, uh, you just can't remove a person or don't want people to leave one fine day. They need to be appraised about it. When we say appraised about it, they need to be first aware how has been their progress so far, or what is it that they have contributed, where are the areas that they have not contributed, which areas could be explored, which areas they could learn from, maybe somebody through maybe a mentor or coach. So this feedback is important, and when we talk of this feedback, it's about also providing good infrastructural facilities. When we say good infrastructural facility, it could be about the transporting time, commuting time from workplace to where they stay, where the employees stay. It could be about the clean environment, the laboratories, the systems, softwares which are up to date as per the industry norms, which are fast, which are easily learnable as well, and also creating an environment of trust and openness. Now, trust, they say, is just a 5 alphabet word, but carries a lot of weight. So when we say carries a lot of weight, it means that trust needs to be given and developed as an employer-employee relationship is concerned. Now, when we speak of, so first we have discussed the observations to the recommendation. Now we'll look into the certain retention strategies that could be developed as far as reducing attrition, especially the dysfunctional attrition is concerned. Now, in the strategy formulation itself, the company should plan its goals and objectives in such a way that retention of employees should be a top priority. Now, as an HR function, it should not be in a reactive mode, like when attrition happens, what to do. Or rather than that, it's better that we take in a responding way. When we say responding, it's about, it should be part of HRP or HR, human resource planning. It should be taken in advance that if attrition are going up, what things need to be checked. So we call it as a dip test. So what things need to be checked? It could be about managerial effectiveness. It could be about infrastructure facility. It could be about compensation, whatever. So the dip test need to be taken up to retain employees. Intrinsic factors of motivation such as recognition and appreciation, employee empowerment are damn important. So we want to conclude this part of the module on attrition by saying that in strategic human resource management, acquiring and retaining talent should be a top priority for any organization. Now, as I say this, I would just want to give a rough, any idea what is the attrition rate in normal companies. Now, they say that it is differential based on the kind of sector and function that you're working in. But if it's an IT company or it's a BPO kind of sector, the attrition is pretty huge, and that's close to touching 40-50%. Now, sectors like manufacturing units, sectors like units of teaching per se, the attrition rates are as low as maybe 7-8% as well. But anything ranging between 7-8 to 50% is what the attrition range is. Now, that's a huge range. So they say that anything between 7 to 10%, if you have an attrition in the organization, it's considered to be a healthy attrition, especially if it's a functional attrition. You recollect what functional attrition means. That means that people are parted off only where the performance is not meeting expectation or as per the set objectives. Organizations that aim at growth and development, they should focus on their human resource development as well. They should motivate their employees and provide them with good infrastructural facilities as well. If the organization is successful in implementing these measures, it will bring down the attrition rates and can lead to organizational effectiveness. So when we say management of attrition, it's overall looking into how we are making people more effective and hence results more effective as well. So that's how the rationale it works up to. So when we, as HR students or as HR employees, we need to understand that people leaving the organization to a certain extent is good, especially if it's a dysfunctional, especially if it's a functional kind of orientation, because we want new thoughts and that to come in as well. We want the results to go up as well. But we definitely want to reduce the dysfunctional attrition where we don't want good people to leave the organization, because they say when good people leave the organization, it is not only that that we have gaps about the good person, difficult to find that match, number one. Number two, the good person is taking along with him the knowledge, skill and experience of maybe number of years, could be expertise, could be networking skills, whatever it might be, to the marketplace, that means to the competition. Now that in itself could be a threat to the working organization in many ways, and especially if the person is handling key portfolios, then it really emerges strongly as one of the factors to be factored in as far as organizational growth is concerned. Great. With this in the backdrop, why we have tried to analyze attrition in current scenarios, we will also relate to this few cases that we are going to discuss in some time from now. We will take up 5 cases. Now from an HR student perspective, or if suppose if you're employed as an HR personnel, who could be as an executive or assistant manager or so, all these 5 are interlinked with each other in various functions, and it's interesting. We'll go one by one to see a few cases of HR. So let's call this, we don't get into absolute examples, but as an HR student, we need to understand how do we look into certain things. Now, we take the case of XYZ company. Now, let's take the scenario or the overview of the organization. Now, situation faced by the company currently is this. The employee who has joined the company for less than 80 days. Now, certain details are important to look into the details. The employee has worked less than 80 days and has not been performing well since she joined. So, she, gender is she. Okay. During this period, she found pregnant and who is still on probation period. So, 2 factors as of now are important. She has joined the company within 80 days. She is pregnant. Her performance is not matching expectation, and she is on a probation period. Okay. Now, management is not happy with her performance and had asked human resource manager to retrench her on the basis of her performance. Now, this is where the situation is, that the management is not happy because the performance is not matching, and the management has asked the HR department or the HR personnel, that is you in this scenario, that retrench her or make her leave the company on the basis of performance. Now the question is, please suggest the HR manager how you will going to deal with this situation. Interesting situation. We'll need to get the data first correct. Number one, A lady has joined the organization which she is under 80 days, number one. Two, she's pregnant. Third, her performance is not meeting expectation. Fourth, she's in probation period. And the question is, or the problem statement is, that the management has called the HR person and told to sack her on the basis of performance. Now, if you are an HR manager in this scenario, how are you going to deal with this? Great situation, because if in future if you are going to work in this scenario, these are cases that you should be aware of. Okay, great. So we will get and look into from an HR eye or HR window how you should look up the case. Okay, one. Let's get to keywords. Probation. What does probation mean? Now, probation is the duration of usually 3 to 6 months for the employee, for which he or she will remain under supervision of the company for his performance and work culture. In this duration, if the performance is not as expected as promised, then the company may not approve his contract for further processing and may be asked to leave the organization. That's a complete discretion of the company that they might ask to leave the company. The worst scenario. Now, let us take the second keyword, maternity. Now, maternity is a period during pregnancy and shortly also after childbirth as well. The questions that we need to ponder over, because they say the quality of decisions you make in life as such is based on the quality of questions that you ask. So, keeping in mind the current situation, what would be your action if you are the HR manager of that company? In your opinion, company should keep her or terminate her or justify your answer. So, if you are an HR person or manager facing the situation, what would be your situation? Would you keep her? Would you terminate her? Whatever you do, please justify your answer. Does policies of company need some changes? Please justify that as well. And according to Maternity Act, she is not eligible for maternity leave. What will you do in this case? Now, these are interesting questions as well, isn't it? So let's see what the law says. Now, the Maternity Benefit Act of 1961 says that the act was enacted to have uniform maternity benefit provision for all women employees. This act extend to the whole of India, where the jurisdiction of the territory applies. Object 1 is to provide the maternity benefit to women employees, and 2, to regulate the employment of women for certain periods between and after childbirth. Now, these are two things that the HR person need to take care of. Few other things are: maximum period a woman is entitled to maternity benefit shall be 12 weeks, of which up to 6 weeks shall be before the date of her expected delivery. We read this sentence once again. It says that the maximum period a woman is entitled to a maternity benefit shall be 12 weeks, of which up to 6 weeks shall be before the date of expected delivery. The second one is, if the woman dies during this period, the maternity benefit shall be payable only up to the days up to and including the day of her death. And the woman shall not be entitled to maternity benefit unless she has actually worked up in the establishment for a period of not less than 80 days in the 12 months immediately preceding the date of her expected date of delivery. Now, third is also important, where it says that the Act says that the Maternity Act of 1961 also says that the woman shall not be entitled to the benefits where whichever establishment she is working for, she is not working less than 80 days. So it has to be more than 80 days. In the 12 months immediately preceding the date of her expected date of delivery. Now the penalty rules attached to this are: penalty for contravention by employer who fails to pay the maternity benefit or discharges or dismisses a woman during pregnancy leave. He shall be punishable with imprisonment of minimum of 3 months, maximum of 1 year, or a fine of 2,000, but a maximum of 5,000. If there are sufficient reasons, the court may impose a sentence of lesser term or fine only in lieu of imprisonment. Now, any other contravention, imprisonment up to 1 year or fine up to 5,000 or both could be done. Now, as an HR person, we should be aware of these laws as well. And let's see in this given scenario, what have the experts got to say on this. Now, the experts' views are: if she is not performing well and she is into probation period, then she can be terminated. The procedure you can follow is: first you can issue a show cause notice to hear and give her some time. So first give her show cause notice, give her time to respond as well, 7 days, so that she can reply in writing what are the causes behind it. If the cause given by her justified, retain her if it's justifiable, or otherwise issue a termination letter. This is another expert, Mr. J.S. Malik. What has he got to say on this? He says that you have kept someone on probation and the performance is not satisfactory, then you have to give him a chance to improve, and you have to issue letters to him for her weakness. Now, students, one thing needs to be understood, that when we speak of performance, you should not look at it from a pregnancy perspective. Don't relate to two different things. Now, if performance is not coming up, the first thing is, was the management keeping her aware about the performance progress? Was she being informed about it? Was she supported about it? But in this case, it seems that you are not much worried about her performance. And that's what J.S. Malik has a very valid point. He says that, but you are worried about her, that she is pregnant on the basis of you cannot terminate her services. So it could be a very sad perspective if this is the case, because you are looking after the thing that if she is pregnant, that the leaves might be there, and in the long term it might be a big loss. But what J.S. Malik has to point out, that don't look only from a short-term perspective. You might be thinking from an HR perspective that this is long-term thinking, maybe for 1 year down the line. But if you have supported an individual through rough days, through really times of difficulties, then the employee also reverts it back, gives it back multiple times over, it has been seen. But before making this decision, you have to evaluate the case well as well. That's what the J.S. Malik has to say. Bharti Singh has to say that I think there's a need to rework on companies' recruitment processes as such. The really bad part of you as an HR person to looking at terminating a pregnant woman just as she's joined the organization. Or this is not even ethical as well, according to Bharti Singh. She should be helped and given a chance to improve as well. Trust me, if she is physically unfit to perform well, she will leave on herself, and if she is not sincere towards the work, also she will be given a chance, just to give a chance how does she fare. There is no point in terminating an employee just because she is pregnant, no matter whether she is on probation or confirmed. So your opinion counts. Do participate. Think about it, because it's a very interesting case and this happens a lot of times within the organization as well. So best possible solutions that we can come up in such scenarios are: number one, firstly see the circumstances why she's underperformer. That means don't connect these two things. Look it separately, look it objectively. Don't make pregnancy period criteria for termination. And you can terminate probation after giving show cause notice as well. Talk to her and find what the problem is with the performance. If really the problem is with the work, then you can very well talk to her, identify it, support her, help her as well. You can tell her in positive sense that we are okay if you resign within a week also. Just take care of your health, because health is more important than wealth. This gives the employee a great sense of satisfaction and strength. Bad mood or disturbed situation which disturbs our business activity as well. So an HR person, you need to be a good communicator as well in this sense, having a very high level of emotional intelligence to understand things well, to express things well, and behave also well. So it's about using the environment and knowledge of emotional intelligence, and using that. Even the right selection of words are important as well. Being a good listener in this scenario also helps a lot. Pregnancy has nothing to do with the performance during probation period. Build record before terminating your services. Such issues: warning letter, create file memos, advisory memos, etc. before terminating as well. She can ask for leave without pay for such period on presenting medical certificates as well. Extend the probation period for 3 months. Issue her a letter that she will be under probation period for so and so days. And if she doesn't show any good performance in that period, then you can think about taking actions as well. So if you want to conclude this particular case, you can say that retrenchment is not the only solution which is left with any HR manager. Preparing new guidelines to deal with such situation is important. It creates proper work environment for women employees as well. Understand the value of human. Don't always consider them as a resource. So that's very important sentence that we are making, that when we say of HRM, it's not only about resource, but also much more and beyond that. That means we are being human first, and then relating it from there really helps a lot. Because then if you win over hearts of people in the times of crisis, they will repay you 10 times more, many times over in their lifetimes of their working environment. Great. Now you understood, students, why we have taken attrition there as well. So all of this also are interlinked. So is this also a part of attrition? Yeah, you bet yes. Great. Case number 1 was this. Case number 2 of HRM. Let's take some other scenarios, some other HR scenarios which are important and relevant. Now this is about a company called as XYZ. Now it's a Pepsi bottler in Delhi. Now the market of its products, now if you see bottling company, especially Pepsi, they are into cold drink manufacturing, aerated drinks. The market for its products are seasonal. Now important dimension and important data to work on. It dips in the winter, resulting in excess of skilled bottling staff between October and February. And this is another interesting data. If laid off, that means since we don't want much of workforce during that off-season period of October to February, So if employees are laid off, these employees will be difficult and costly to replace. 1. Each employee receives 3 months of intensive training for being fully qualified in the bottling plant. So there's a huge demand for these employees as well, and there's a shortage of bottlers as well when the peak season arrives. Interesting scenario. We repeat and understand the case well. Number one, there is a aerated bottler in Delhi, a bottling plant, who bottles for Pepsi. Now, this company, as you're aware, for any aerated drinks, that's a seasonal business. They do the maximum business once the summer season arrives, and it tapers off or goes down as winter approaches. Now, the situation we need to understand is, if employees are laid off, these employees will be difficult to get over in the peak season time. Plus, the company has invested money to train them to become eligible and eligible for their functional jobs. And there's a huge demand of these employees as well. Okay, so given this case, we need to understand certain dimensions. One, what is a task force? Now, a task force is a group of people who are temporarily assigned to work together to achieve a very specific and clearly defined objective. Now, task itself means there's a specific thing to be done. Now, specific thing to be done maybe at a particular time, at a particular rate. Now, our objective as a task force, when we say our objective, HR objective. Understand, when you are looking all these cases, as a student, we have to look in from the HR eye or from an HR window or from a human resource window. Now, as a member of the task force, what ideas can you suggest so as to ensure that the services of the skilled employees are available when they are needed year after year and round the year? We again take back and look into the problem question or situational question, which is important. If you or we are a member of the task force, what ideas or what things we can think of to ensure that the services of the skilled employees are available when they are needed year after year or round the year? Now, let's look into the problems faced of this bottler company. 1. Excess of skilled bottling staff between October to February. Now, please understand, students, the way the presentation is took up. This is also the way the thought process needs to go in. Very objective about it, very data specific about it. Whenever you have a situation at hand, the first thing you need to get straight is, what is the problem? Now, people tend to look more into symptoms. Now, symptoms might not, just like if you're going to a doctor if you're not well, he look into the symptoms, but he is looking at the root cause of the symptoms. Because if you are going to treat symptoms, it might just give a relief for a certain amount of period of time. But if you're going at the cost level, then the cure is possible. So if you're going to a doctor, he gives medication based on the cost, not based on symptoms. So for us also as HR people, we need to understand, don't look at the symptoms, look at the cause. Because a lot of times, our short-term solutions are our long-term problems. I repeat this. A lot of times, our short-term solutions are our long-term problems. So if you're going to do a patchwork or a temporary kind of makeshift kind of arrangement, we will struggle in the long run because performance will not be optimized. We will not have consistency in the results. We will always struggle for quality issues. We will always struggle with attrition. Will people will not stay by if we don't have consistent ethical kind of business. So we need to be structured in our approach. So we first need to define what is the problem statement, what are the facts that are important, what are the possible alternatives that we could think of, and then based on that we need to decide. Now, decision making process at any given point of time, we will never have all the resources even in terms of data, but based on whatever is available as data, we still need to make a decision. And effective leaders do that quite a lot based on whatever the resources are available. So when we say problems faced with the company are: one, excess of skilled bottling staff between October to February. This is a lean period for the bottler company. Can't be laid off because they're difficult to get back because they're expensive as well. They're trained staff as well. So that's a cost implication as well. And also, there's a huge demand for these employees. If you lay off, they might join some other company and will not be available for your peak season time. So these are the problems faced by the company. So how to go about it? Great. Few solutions. Number one, you can think of recycling. Recycling? So we'll discuss this. Shifting of skilled employees could be thought about. You can think of outsourcing or using different labor pay as well. So we'll discuss this one by one. Alternative one, let's talk about recycling. Now, recycling are when all the bottles which need recycling will be done at the time of October to December. So all the bottles which goes from a bottling plant to the marketplace also comes back to recycle. Now this work could be packed up or could be stacked up during this period between October and December because this is a lean phase for a bottling plant. This would help in reducing the material cost for that period and can make up for the labor cost. Since labor time is available during this period, it could be used for optimization. It's an eco-friendly process where plant-based material could be used to recycle. So in both ways it's helpful. So one alternative is this. Two, it could be about shifting skilled employees from one process to another. So during that lean period, we could think about this alternative as well, where the company has a number of processes, out of which we have took two processes and the solutions with which we came as well. When we say processes, in cold drink process, we have poor demand for Pepsi bottling services, and at the same time, we have bulky demands for hard drinks during this time period from October to February. So this process shift could happen during this lean phase, where hard drink bottle makers, a lot of work for employees, and solution could be job rotation. So in the peak time they are into bottling business, off peak time they are into hard drink business process. So one strategy we looked into, the first strategy was about recycling. Two, as an alternative, could be think of the process job rotation. The third alternative could be outsourcing. Now, outsourcing is a strategic focus on low-cost labor, helps a firm keep a lid on workforce charges. When this is particularly important for a company experiencing declining sales and poor performance, as it prevents the firm from going underwater. So if a company is going through turbulent times or not a great period, this is one of the options that the company can think of. Outsourcing means subcontracting work to another company or another organization. In other words, the company outsourcing a work stream, it transfers the business function to an external service provider. So for the month of October to February, we will be a service provider. So that could be one of the options, and develop into symbiotic relationship or collaborative business who are experts in the zone, wherein a high demand for skilled labor in there is the market, providing skilled employee service to another company, can manage off-seasonal effects of the Pepsi bottling, labor turnover can be reduced to minimum, no additional cost to the company can maintain its goodwill of retaining their labor as well. So you can think of really outsourcing the employees as well to another company as well. Or the fourth alternative, that's about using different labor pay structure. Now, assuming certain stats as follows, and just an assumption, just to make it more mathematically correct, although it might not run by that standard, but it gives a proportionate direction to what we are talking of. So suppose the number of laborers are 100. Now on season, if you can see the slide, some details about it. If the labor cost is around 2 rupees per bottle manufactured, the average production per labor per month is 100 units. So total cost would be around 200, and total for 100 labor costs would be 20,000. The off season, if is average production per labor per unit is 50, labor cost per head amounts to 100, incentives and bonuses, since it's an off season, is 1 rupees per head, total cost will be 3, and total cost will be 150, and total labor cost in this case will be 15,000. There's a training cost, there's a total labor of 100, so labor training cost is 4 rupees per head per month, and therefore the training cost per head for 3 months would be 12. So amounting to total cost for 3 months would be 1200 rupees. So compared to on season cost where we are paying rupees 600 per head, we are paying now double the amount. So these are pure mathematical calculations. We are looking at the cost benefit ratio analysis as well. So looking into this case, we can conclude that we have come up with the conclusion that we would like to put all the alternatives in front of managers and would be looking for it in future perspective. So when we are looking at alternatives, we never say that this is a right or wrong decision or a good and a bad decision. In a given situation, no decision is good or bad or right or wrong. Based on the available resources of information that we have, the organization performance during that period of time, the economical environment that's prevailing in those times, also the government rules and regulation, the overall socio-economic climate as well, influences these decisions as well. But as an HR individual, we need to understand the situation, the possible alternatives, and then decide which one to take off. Great. Now this was about the first case that we discussed was on maternity and performance correlation. Second, we discussed on a given situation where the HR needs to take a call whether they want to retrench, to lay off, or any other source as well. The third situation, and we will be looking into these situations as well, we'll be looking into a recruitment and selection process of an IT company. Now, I would like to come back to one of the situations. We started off our session with attrition. Now, a question I would like to put forth to you: is attrition some way related to recruitment and selection? I bet you will say yes. Yeah, it's an emphatic yes. Understand that attrition could also be streamlined if your recruitment and selection process is fine-tuned. One of the influencing parameter. Because of the recruitment or selection is not right, you might have a functional attrition where you have not selected the right person for the right job at the right time at the right level. This might also lead to underperformance and then hence to attrition. Understand, all these functions have cost attached to it. We need to understand that since everything is also cost related, we need to understand that this process is all interlinked or codependent or interdependent to each other. So when we are looking at business efficiency and effectiveness, we need to understand that every function of HR needs to be really fine-tuned, understood well. So when we're looking at recruitment selection process, we're looking from one of the IT companies, IBM, and this would be interesting as well. So and suppose if you are just working, or say not working also, just a pure student, one good activity, at least which I did when I was studying, was very helpful before you got a job or even at whatever point of career you are. Whichever kind of company or function that you want to work in, please pick up few companies in that zone who are doing well. Suppose if it's an IT company you are working in or the IT domain that you are working in, please pick up 5, 6, 10 IT companies, maybe IT companies you're aware, like Microsoft, it could be Google, it could be IBM, it could be Wipro, Infosys, TCS, any of those. So pick up those companies, invest time to study on this. If you are in a pharmaceutical company, please pick up few pharma companies like Pfizer, Glaxo, Sun, Panacea Biotech, Eli Lilly, so on and so forth. If you are into a manufacturing setup, look into Bosch, Tata Motors. If you're into automobiles, go into more specific, it could be Volkswagen, it could be about Mercedes-Benz, it could be Maruti, it could be Mahindra and Mahindra, any of those. So please pick up few companies as case studies. Understand, if you want to need to grow in any of the functions, start finding about the companies. Don't go haphazard. Pick up 5 companies, either which are doing well, one, or which are brands, or which you want to work with those companies. Research on a bit. Make a journal for yourself or make a PPT for yourself. Make cases for the study. Understand which projects they are into, what kind of work they are doing, who are the key portfolios people are handling. Look into where are the topographic locations they are spread out in India or across the globe. Make a note of it. Now understand, if you're keeping a track of these 5 companies, reading about in business news or business magazines about these companies, add to it. When you're finding this out, let me tell you, it really adds value to what you can bring along. Because if you're then going for an interview, what you're speaking would make more sense. And if it is one of those companies whom you have detailed and surveyed, let me tell you, the kind of confidence you will be exhibiting and exhibiting would be very different. And HR people can figure it out very well. You also get to know that the person is prepared well. 2, he's in the right function, he's intentional as well. This all makes a lot of sense. So while we are trying to discuss cases as well, it becomes more specific, more detailed. You get to know how to view the situation as well. So let's talk about recruitment selection IBM. Okay, so when we say of human resource are the most important asset of the organization. The success or failure of an organization is largely dependent on the caliber of the people working therein. So recruitment is distinct from employment and selection. We have discussed this when we discuss recruitment and selection. So this becomes a reiteration or repetition that we have mentioned this before earlier as well. Recruitment is different from selection. Recruitment is about attracting people to the company. Selection is when you actually go on to select it. Great. So when we say of recruitment, the means of attracting them towards the organization before selecting suitable candidates for the job. The recruitment is only one of the steps for the entire employment process. Let's see the factors affecting recruitment. There are two factors, one the internal, external. The internal factors for recruitment could be first the company policies, the recruitment policy of the organization. It could be based on temporary and part-time employees. It could be about recruitment of local citizens. It could be about engagement of company in HRP or human resource planning. It is based on company size, the cost of recruitment as well, the company's growth and expansion. The external factors or variables are the supply and demand factors, unemployment rate, labor market conditions, political and legal considerations where the company is working in as far as territory specifications are concerned, social factors as well, the economic factors and technological factors as well. So when we say recruitment relation with other factors, if you look into your slide, the left hand side we have a job analysis based on which we have came to this job title, the nature required of specific ones. Then we have an HRP part of planning where we have number of jobs to be filled in. From recruitment, we have a pool of qualified applicants from which the selection happens. Now there are constraints associated and inducements as well. Constraints are the challenges. The challenges could be about poor image, it could be an attractive job, it could be policy, government policy as well. The inducements or the benefits, advantages are compensation, the career opportunities with the organization, image and reputation as well. So when we say of selection, selection is a process of, so one, we have only came to recruitment. The second is about selection. Selection is a process of picking individuals who have relevant qualifications to fill jobs in the organization. So the basic purpose is to choose the individual who can most successfully perform the job among the pool of the qualified candidates. That's the objective of selection. So as far as IBM is concerned, these are the steps involved, and we'll look into these steps one by one. Step right from reception, screening interviews, application blank, selection test, selection interview, medical test, reference checks, and hiring design. Okay, so let's go one by one. Reception. So when we say of reception is to create a favorable impression on the applicant right from the stage of reception. Reception is to receive. It comes from the word from to receive. Receive is a verb and reception is a noun for the same word. So how do you receive it? That means in the first instance itself, we want to give a right kind of image to the participant, and that's very important. Now, reception also includes the actual reception site where selection is going to happen. It could be your website, the company's website. It could be wherever the advertisement is placed. This is also the way to receive the prospective employee. Screening interviews. Now, generally planned by large organizations to cut the cost of selection by allowing only eligible candidates to go through further stages in selection. We all know that recruitment selection is a cost to the company. So we don't want HR people or HR personnel to be occupied in just doing interviews. So screening always helps to chop off or cut down the size of the employee so that the actual interviewing time or selection time can come down, because that's cost to the company. Application blank, a very important step for this process of recruitment selection. Application blank or form is one of the most common methods used to collect information like personal data, it could be marital data, it could be educational data, employment experience, extracurricular activities, references and recommendations. These data becomes very helpful from a job description perspective, a job location perspective. A lot of screening could be done from application blank as such, because it also is a guideline based on which the entire process of selection or interviewing could be navigated through. The selection testing, the next step. When we say selection test, it is an attempt to assess intelligence, abilities, personality type, performance, simulation tests, and some of the commonly used employment tests are intelligence tests, aptitude tests, personality tests, and achievement tests. Now, what we do in selection test is we get into a lot of tests. It could be an aptitude test, it could be a verbal test, it could be a mathematical test, it could be any of the physical tests, which is important from a perspective based on the job that it has. It could be a psychometric tool also used. Then comes the selection interview as such. Now, interview, as the name suggests, is an oral examination of the candidate for employment. So where a dialogue happens between the company and the employee, prospective employee. The most essential step in the selection process and more talked about in the entire recruitment and selection process, where the interviewer matches the information obtained about the candidate through various means of the job requirements. So a lot of discussion happens at this end. Then if the person gets through this stage, next stage is the medical examination, where certain jobs require physical qualities like clear vision, perfect hearing, unusual stamina, tolerance of hard working conditions, clear tone in voice. Now, suppose if you are going for a defense personnel, there obviously physical stamina and endurance is important. If you are going for an RJ or radio jockey, or quality of voice is important. If you're going for a sales kind of job, the job description is about sales, then it has to be skills of communication, presentation, negotiation, selling skills are important. If you're going from an accounts perspective, then your abilities to think in numbers or numerical abilities needs to be good. Then medical examination reveals whether a person requires this physical abilities are met with. It could be about clear eyesight as well. If it's a position for a pilot, then eyesight vision is important. Then the reference check. Once the interview and the medical examination is done of the candidate, the personnel department will engage in checking references which the person is given. Candidates are required to give the names of 2 to 3 references to the application form. If they are student, then the reference of HOD or of their last qualified institute is checked into. If the person is having an employment, then the last employer or the current employer is checked with. Now, reference checking uh, is a very different segment, because a lot of times people normally have apprehensions like, does a reference check really is helpful? Let me tell you, it's damn worth it, because it's a small step, but it's a very important step. Just speaking to the last employer or current employer really gives them fine details about it. Yes, the information can be biased, skewed, but yet it's worthwhile because just a phone call, and it's worth the phone call this way. And then based on this, the line manager has to make a final decision now whether to select or reject a candidate after soliciting the required information through different techniques, right from reception to screening interviews, to application blank, through selection tests, through selection interviews, to reference checks and hiring decisions. And some selection practices of renowned companies, Siemens India for example, it uses extensive psychometric instruments to evaluate listed candidates. It also prepares a personality questionnaire to understand a candidate's personality as well. So lots of tools are available in psychometric tools. It could be meta programs, it could be disc profiling, lots of tools available in this end as well. But what PepsiCo India does is, company uses competency-based interviews, techniques that look at candidates' abilities in terms of strategizing, lateral thinking, problem solving in the real environment. So in PepsiCo India, what they do is they give competency-based interviews. So give lots of situational-based interviews. Like in this kind of situation, how do you address it as well? So as far as IBM is concerned, recruitment is concerned, for a student, the process begins with sending the resumes through the campus TPOs or training and placement officer. This is then followed by an independent selection process involving a round of discussions. This is where the students' interests and skills are matched with their existing business problems that Indian Software Lab projects plan to solve. A selection offer is made once a match is found. So we match what the student has in terms of competency to what is expected from the job as well. The eligibility criteria of IBM specified, left hand side you will see, you should have a minimum aggregate of 70% in engineering till the last semester or till which the exams have been cleared. However, for all IITs or elite institutes, a minimum of aggregate of 60% is good enough. Internship program is also one of the requisites or looked into factors. The ISL has an internship program where students' interest in doing their engineering projects for a period of 6 months. Extreme Blue program, where it's a premier internship for top-notch students pursuing software development degrees. CAs or Center Advanced Studies. ISL offers MTech, MS and PhD students access to the IBM research areas, technical staff and other resources with the goal of solving research problems as well. So we have 3 layers as well. So one, it could be a normal internship program. It could be a specialized kind of extreme blue program or a very extensive research done. So this also could be the criteria for recruitment and selection as far as IBM is concerned. So we have discussed 3 cases. Number 1, we have seen the pregnancy maternity benefit. We have seen the PepsiCo bottler plant, and we have seen the recruitment selection case of IBM is concerned. We will look into now a similar model as well with Nestle. Now, if you look into the cases that we are discussing or we are handling, they are big companies, and not only it's interesting to have an insight into their methodology and process is concerned, but it's very fascinating to observe what all processes these companies adhere to as well. Now we'll look into, as far as Nestle is concerned, only interview. Now, very fascinating because they say that attending an interview for many, is a real challenge because people tend to have lots of apprehension, fear, or phobia, I should call it well, while giving an interview. A lot of time, in spite of having maybe the best of competencies or best of know-how about the subject, a lot of people fail to deliver that know-how or even to present or fail to present the know-how as well. So in this scenario, we will look into how Nestle as a company does interviewing, and that's very fascinating as well. Their table of contents. So one thing we need to understand before we get into this topic of interviewing, lot of times, and in my own personal experience also I've seen that a lot of times, as far as interviews are concerned, or HR people who take interviews are concerned, a lot of time they are not very clear about what are they looking forward to. So it's important that you need to have an outcome frame, or the outcome thinking we call it. What do you want in the candidate? That means, are your benchmark or evaluation criteria specified, cleared, and measurable? A lot of time when interviews happen, planned interviews, a lot of people, when we ask HR people, what was your base of selection? And when we throw this question, a lot of people struggle to answer that question. With a deep thought, they will respond, I thought that the candidate was good. It's a gut feeling. So yes, we take that feeling into consideration, yes, but are your evaluation tools clear? Do you know what you exactly want from the candidate? Based on the job, based on the description, based on what is expected of the job. So we'll get into these details. So organizations who are groomed well, organizations who have a planned structure of of the entire process of recruitment selection, they are very methodological or methodical in the way about the way of doing things. So we'll get into definition of interview, types of interviews, structure of interview, content of interview, administration of interview, and process of conducting interview as well. So first, as we always do that, the history of the company, the organizational study, the strength and weaknesses associated with each, conclusions and recommendations of Nestle. Okay. Definition. Now, when we say interviewing, interview is a process in which a potential employee is evaluated by an employer for prospective employment in their company, organization, or firm. During this process, the employer hopes to determine whether or not the applicant is suitable for the role. So the objective of the interviewer is that the interviewee or the prospective employee, could he be a possible fit in the organization based on whether the person can do the expected job or not, whether he be fit in that position, how he should be gelling around with the team as well. These are few things that the interviewer will look in. Types of interview. Now, various types of interviews, that means If there are types of interviews, that also means that there are types of questions as well. So when we say one is a selection interview, that means conduct at the time of selection when the interview is happening. It could be an appraisal interview, give promotions and rewards, or it could also be an exit interview where the employee leaves the organization. Now, I again want to tag you back or take you back to attrition. Now, if you see, we spoke about in attrition about dysfunctional attrition, where a good person or a good performing individual is leaving the organization. Now, in that scenario, the third factor, exit interview, becomes very important, because you might have lost that performing employee. That's fair, and that's okay. Maybe the strategies to retain him or her back might not have worked, but you can get real insights about things, about why the person is leaving, so that we take the learning and apply it to the system or influence the system in such a way that future dysfunctional attrition is tapered down or narrowed down. So, three types of interviews are selection interview, appraisal interview, and exit interview. The formats used for interviews are: one, we have structured interview, where there are directive and standardized format, and there are unstructured interviews as well. There is non-directive and used in a complex job. Let's look into this. The content of interview. One is a situational interview, wherein given the situation, ask the situation and ask the solution. That means, for example, if one of the requirement of the job is that the person or the position needs to have a good team player, so we give a situation in the interview, like for example, we ask the interviewee, if there are 4 people in a team and you are one of the team member, and if suppose one person is not really contributing to the overall function, or if he is underperforming, and if you are the leader of that team, how would you go about it? Now, this is a situation question. We are given a situation and let him explain that situation. The second type or format of interviewing is the behavioral interviews. Now, it's about what kind of behavior the person has demonstrated based on its past experience. Now, it could be, for example, we always ask questions in this category. It could be, when is the last time you failed? And sometimes it's a googly for a lot of people. And what was your methodology, or what is the structure, or what is the strategy to win? What has worked for you till now? So what is being elicited are the behaviors that the person is going to say based on his past experience. The third format is to be job-related interview. The question based to the absolute functionality of the job. Suppose if an IT job, so it could be about software, it could be about programming, it could be about troubleshooting. If it's a sales kind of job or marketing kind of job, it could be about the product mix, it could be about the customer selection, it could be about the sales closing. If it's a manufacturing job, it could be about the process orientation, it could be about the people orientation. If it's a job about QC, QA, it could be about certain functional aspects, it could be about chromatography as well. So any of those. So absolute functional dependent interviews. Or it could be stressed in interviews where check temperament and depression. So if suppose the job function demands that you need to work in the high stress environment. When I say stress environment, that means it could be about multiple tasks, it could be about deadlines of time, it could be about uh, just about customer management, so many of those. So people tend to check that as well. For example, one of the stress interviews that we take is also suppose if a person has came for customer customer relationship management or into customer service, say for example. So we ask certain questions many times over. The reason is if we ask certain questions many times over and we check for verbal and non-verbal clues, uh, if the person seems to get irritated pretty fast, or if his or her fuse is pretty low, then he or she is not the right candidate for customer service, because one of the essential prerequisites to be in customer service is about patience. And if you tend to fall off your patience or patience very fast, or if anger is always the tip of your nose, you will struggle for sure. So we look at the stress element as well. Now, how to deliver the interviews or administer the interviews? It could be structured sequential interviews where we have a standardized questionnaire conducted by interviewers in a sequence. So if it's a very planned kind of interview, it's very structured. That means the layout, the design, the flow is patterned, it's organized. So we know how to go about it. Two, it could be unstructured sequential interview. That means where here we ask questions as come to interviewer's mind. So here the interviewer has a more dynamic approach to interviewing. That means that suppose if the job is of a complex nature. Now when we say complex nature means that the job has to handle multiple jobs. It could be a CEO position, it could be a HOD position. Then it's unstructured in the sense that the interviewer takes it as it goes along. That means he flows with the interviewee in terms of the methodology. Or it could be a panel job interview where the group of interviews interview the candidate based on, it could be a mix of functional interview and the HR interview, or it could be a individual separate, could be a panel of it. It could be mass interviews where group of interviewers interview group of candidates, or it could be web assisted interview wherein we using internet technology as well, or it could be phone interviews where on-call interviews in order to save time is there. Now how to design and conduct an effective interview? First step always is analyze the job. That means the JD, the skills, ability and knowledge required. Step 2, rate the job's main duties. That means the skills required, the soft and the hard skills. It could be decision making skills, computerized, analytical skills. It could be about integrity. It could be any of those. Step 3, create interviewing questions. That means prepare a question before taking interview. Create benchmark answers, multiple answers for those questions. So set standards based on those questions and then compare the benchmarks. And use scales. The benchmarking could be scale of 0 to 5, it could be 0 to 10, any of those. Appoint the interview panel and conduct interview. Select the interviewers and conduct the interview. History of the company, just a brief history as far as Nestle is concerned. In 1866, Henry Nestle developed a milk-based baby food by the name Ferrin Lacti Henry Nestle, and that's where we all know the Lacti product of Nestle. Swiss origin, headquartered in Vevey, Switzerland. In 1905, Nestle and Anglo-Swiss Condensed Milk Company merged and retained the previous name Nestle. In 1947, the name was freezed to give a name of Nestle. From 1960 onwards, Nestle gained a strong position, decided not to merge with other companies. Choosing Nestle for this analysis, use assessment centers to select the candidates. They use a lot of assessment center to select candidates. First company which conduct telephonic interviews to screen the candidates and reduce the pool of candidates as well. Then to take face-to-face interviews as well. Nestle, what the company uses both formats of interviews according to the type of job. It could be structured and unstructured both. When we are using structured interview and the job is similar, when the company fills a complex kind of job, mostly important to executive positions, the company offers unstructured or semi-structured or mix of structured and unstructured as well. The strength that the company has about interviewing as a process is Nestle company uses a lot of panel as well as mass interview, which saves the time of interviewers and helps the interviewer to compare the candidate and to select the right person for the right job. Then the Nestle company uses all types of questions in the interview according to the requirement of the job. It could be situational questions, it could be behavioral questions, job related or stress questions. In addition, Nestle company uses competency and motivational questions as well. The strength, it uses STAR approach in competency based questions. STAR are abbreviated terms standing for situational, task, action and result. Situation, the methodology that they expect is a STAR format. S standing for why did you have this kind of deadline? What are specific role in the task? What action did you initiate on this? And what are the end results that you got? Nestle have experienced interviewers. In fact, they're trained for interviewing for some time. They use all types of interviews. Example, selection interview, appraisal interview, and exit interview as well. The weakness that they have as an organization of this model is the criteria for interview of Nestle has no doubt very clear and usefulness, but the weakness sometimes are personal biases that exist within the panel. Based also could be on gender, on caste, on creed, and nationality. So interviewer sometimes selects the candidate based on this, where eligibility might take a back seat. Conclusion, as far as Nestle is concerned, we conclude that effective interview is very necessary for any organization to increase the performance and to achieve the objectives of the organization as well. Now, every organization needs to select the right person for the right job. In order to achieve this objective, Nestle company gives more emphasis on selection of the candidate. The HRM department of Nestle company is very strong in understanding this process. Now, why we have taken up this case is also as students, when we are looking at this as a process, we need to understand that interviewing is different for different people based on which side of the table you are sitting. From an HR perspective, it's just not a process. It's very much a science and an art and skill to take interviewing, because it uses various skill sets to look into from various dimensions as well, and it uses lots of methodology and lots of structures, like a lot of psychometric tools are used in interviewing. A lot of tools from NLP is used. Neuro-linguistic programming is being used in terms of meta programs or meta model questions. Disc profiling is used, or FIRO-B is used. Balanced scorecard is used as well. So if you are a good HR professional and if you are into interviewing and selection, we need to be knowing and understanding these dimensions as well. So we have looked into 4 cases as well, and final recommendations as far as Nestle is concerned. Nestle company have a strong HR department and experienced interviewers are there. So we have some recommendations are given below. Nestle company takes steps to overcome some biases that are committed to the interviewers. Nestle companies should give better training to interviewers as well. They should arrange for interviews in a room where any contact is not allowed. Use standard type of questions and create benchmarks for the answers as well. Great. And now we take up in the coming 15 odd minutes the last case for our session. Unilever, big brand, big hopes, big aspirations, big dreams, a huge company by size, by product range, and a huge sector, retail. So again, we'll look into recruitment and selection process. But if you see our case studies, we have been looking into from various facets the same thing. And that's what true leadership is also all about. We should be looking into the same angle from a bird's eye view as well, and also from a worm's eye view as well. So when we get to a worm's eye view, it's about the detailed picture. A bird's eye view is about looking in perspective. So leadership, especially from an HR context, is to have flexibility to use both the worm's eye view, that's a detailed view, and also the bird's eye view, that's a perspective view, looking in context as well. Great. So when we look at Unilever, let's understand certain dimensions. Unilever was created in 1930 by merger of operations of British soap maker Lever Brothers, and that's where the Lever comes in, or Unilever comes in. Unilever is an Anglo-Dutch multinational corporation that owns many of the world's consumer products. Brands in food, beverages, cleaning agents, and personal care products. So in India, right from, you have a gamut or entire range of things, right from Surf, right from Sunsilk, Rexona, Lipton, Knorr, a huge range it is. Now, the origin dates back to 1964, where the first manufacturing operations were set up, especially in India, and also in other parts as well. Over the 4 decades, Unilever has been constantly bringing new and world-class products as well. Over 90% of the country's households use the products, more so in Asian countries, and that's a huge number and size as well. So when you see departments per se, as far as career opportunities are concerned, they're huge, right from brands and development, to supply chain, to human resource, to finance, to information technology, customer development, huge. So when you say careers in brands, so brand building careers, if you see, would like to take innovative leads and gain their share of consumer wallet in local market. For brand development, one needs to have these few attributes, and these are real interest in consumer as well as intuitive understanding of their behaviors as well is important. And what works in specific market and what doesn't as well is important to understand. We need to, if you're looking into brand, definitely very strong interpersonal skills are required, and the ability to lead functional teams is important. Strong analytical ability. When you are into brand management, as an HR person, we need to be able to detect individuals who have got good analytical thinking and decision making skills. It's how do you analyze things as well. It's creativity inspired by a passion for growth as well. So the drive, the zeal also needs to be there to excel, to grow, to expand. If it's a supply chain, so Unilever supply chain, if you see, is one of the most advanced, efficient, challenging systems, from finding the raw material to delivering end products as well. For supply chain, one needs to have the following skills. One, high level of numeric efficiency, proficiency and strong analytical ability, strong negotiating skills, because supply chain or supply chain management, SCM as it's called in many organizations, need to have good negotiating skills with your internal and external clients. Relationship and alliance management skills, an entrepreneurial approach to the innovation and cost saving opportunity in supply markets, the ability to work with other business cultures as well, and to organize effective links between them and our businesses. So, since supply chain management has got to do with different clients, different companies, different cultures, different countries as well, the ability to get along with people as well is important. So, careers and human resource. So, Unilever people are important asset, especially if you go for HR functions. Needs that are important are real interest in how people drive the business. Strong interpersonal and leadership skills are important. The strength and integrity to take tough decisions when necessary are important. Strong understanding of overall business functions, what is the cascade, what is the flow of business is important. An interest in coaching and developing people is also important. And skills from a human resource perspective is also about how do you relate to people is important. If you don't have a heart to relate with people, it's difficult to get along with people. And as a human resource, it's very important that you can relate to people. So hence, rapport building skills are very important if you want to make a career big, successful and high in HR. If it's in finance, it's about partners in value creation. That means about seizing opportunity to create value and working with our business teams to set and deliver aggressive targets as well. So financial management, one needs sound business awareness, the drive to ensure we get value for money, hit our financial targets and increase our profitability, a talent of seeing both detail and the big picture. So when we talk of finance, very good with numbers, need to understand the cost benefit analysis and ratios, have a detailed eye to finances, a proactive approach to improving the business, and the communication skills to win support for your ideas as well. A personal commitment to obtain a professional accounting qualification if required, alongside your initial development program as well. So if you are seeing this, all business function, if you see, having different skill sets. Let's take in IT. A career in IT gives an opportunity to improve the way you do business as well. So it's a medium or it's a channel. For information technology, as far as Unilever is concerned, it's the tenacity to use technology to create business change. Because IT has been the number one industry across all sectors, and that has been the most evolving and dynamic of it, you need excellent communication, interpersonal influencing skills as well. A highly logical approach to problem solving. The ability to understand technology and discuss IT with non-technical colleagues as well. So when we are seeing at IT, these things are important. So career in customer development. So when we speak of customer development, we are speaking it in terms of responsible for overall sales and distribution of our brand across the country. They are the bridge between the brand development and the customers. For customer development as a field, one needs to have a great passion to achieve targets. The drive has to be there to achieve numbers. Very strong people management skills, good analytical ability, good customer orientation, and the ability to develop action plans that can meet both needs of our customers and the business. Real enthusiasm and pace for competitiveness is retail. Practical creativity and focus on results. So we want smart people as well. Real drive to lead the team. So we want people managers as well. Willingness to work anywhere. So we want location mobility as well. When we say employees as well, one important point is 99.5% are locals. So anywhere you go as far as Unilever is concerned, we are looking at locals, be it all Asian countries, be it in India, be it in Bangladesh, be it in anywhere. The locals, 99% are local teams that they are groomed, developed as well. What Unilever offers as inducements or as benefits are competitive salary, one, pension, healthcare, performance-related bonus, share schemes, 25-day annual leave, flexible working, discount staff shop, staff insurance department, gym free access, and that's quite a lot. Who are HR? So Unilever core mission is simple. It's right people in the right place at the right time. So depending on the skill sets and experiences, Unilever develops careers across two main parts. One, the HR business partner supporting a local business, and unit of core in core areas of talent management, or we have also managers in the HR expertise team where they are into talent learning and reward, defining global HR processes and policies. This was about the backdrop or background of Unilever. Coming to the recruitment process. Recruitment is process of finding and attracting the capable applicants for employment. The process begins when new recruits are required and ends when the applications are submitted. The result is a pool of applicants from which new employees are selected. Whom they want? Fresh graduates as knowledge worker, specialist experienced people for a special purpose or a task, and people for skilled and labor-based events as well. So when we speak of fresh graduates as knowledge workers, it's about personal planning and vacancy announcement. It's about the nature of the application form, the recruiter's qualifications as well, the channels of recruitment, the various channels that the company employs in, the recruitment constraints and challenges as well are taken care of. So when we say recruitment channels, there is one internal recruitment channel and the external recruitment channel. The external recruitment channel, there are walk-ins and write-ins. Walk-ins are the walk-in interviews. Write-ins are people who put a forged resume. There could be employee referrals as well. It could be advertising, private placement agencies and professional search firms as well, educational institutions and professional associates, and international recruitment as well. These are the various things that are used in external recruitment channel as well. The selection process, right, starts from recruiting, where we have an initial screening interview. If it's failed to meet minimum qualification, they are rejected. Next level, if you see in the slide, reception and analyzing of application form. If it's failed to clear this, rejected. Gets into employment test. If he fails that, rejected. Comprehensive interview, fails, rejected. The background investigation, next step, if there is a problem encountered over here, rejected. Gain to cognitive ability test, failed over here, rejected. Medical physical test, if failed over here, rejected.